New year, new you. If you're looking to start the carnivore diet in 2025, this video will give you everything you need. I'm Jenny. I've been on the carnivore diet for 2 years, and in that time, I've learned a ton about metabolic health and the way your body responds to feeding it the right foods for a human. Carnivore really isn't super complicated, but if you're coming from a standard American diet or another normal way of eating, it can feel a bit overwhelming at first. So here's what we're gonna do. First, we're going to define the carnivore diet and talk about the type of foods that you should be eating with this dietary philosophy. Next, we're going to talk about some prep work that you can do to set yourself up for success. Then I'm going to land out the handful of ways that you can get started with carnivore, and we'll talk about some special considerations for those out there with certain conditions. Then we're going to go over the most commonly asked questions and concerns that tend to pop up the first month on the diet. Then I'm going to give you some free resources that are going to help you be super successful on the carnivore diet. I know your time is valuable, so let's get started. What is carnivore? Carnivore is a high-fat, moderate protein way of eating where you only consume meat and animal-sourced products. It's typically very low carb to zero carb. And there are varying levels of strictness depending on your goals and your whys. Why are you doing carnivore in the first place? There's a common misconception that the carnivore diet is high protein, which is typically false. You could definitely do a version of carnivore that's higher protein, but the typical macro breakdown is 70% fat to 30% protein. You can also do higher fat versions of carnivore if you have certain goals that you're trying to meet. We're going to talk more about the different versions of carnivore here in a little bit. But just know that all meat, all seafood, eggs, and butter are where most people are going to be starting on a carnivore diet. Some people include dairy in their versions of carnivore, but I don't advise starting with dairy. I think everyone should cut dairy for the first 30 days and then reintroduce it to see if they have any inflammatory symptoms that come up. Dairy is highly inflammatory, and you might not even realize that a lot of your digestive issues or joint pain or things like that are actually coming from the dairy, and you won't know that until you cut it and then reintroduce it. Now that we've covered what carnivore is, let's dive into some prep work that you can do before day one. First off, you need to clear out everything in your kitchen that is not carnivore. So your fridge, your cabinets, your pantry, get all of that non-carnivore food out of there. You can put it in a box, put it in your garage, you could donate it, you could give it away, you could throw it away, whatever you want to do. But if you are able to do that because it makes it so much easier. The temptations are not around. If you are living in a household with other people that are not doing carnivore and you can't just get rid of all the food, try to get rid of or at least hide away the food that is most of a temptation to you. So if you're obsessed with Oreos and Cinnamon Toast Crunch, get that out of the house for at least the first 30 days. Next up, you need to plan at least 1 week of meals. They can be basic, they can be fancy, but you need to figure out exactly what you're going to be eating that first week. I have an updated free meal plan for 2 weeks worth of carnivore meals, beginner carnivore meals. I will share with you how you can get that free resource at the end of this video. So now you've cleaned out the kitchen, you've come up with a meal plan, now you need to refill the kitchen by going grocery shopping. I have just a few tips. Get pastured organic eggs if you can. They are a bit pricey, so any egg will do, but if you can afford those are going to be the highest quality eggs you can get. Grass-fed, grass-finished meats are nice, they are a bit higher quality, and if you can afford it, awesome, but it's not necessary to eat only grass-fed, grass-finished meat on a carnivore diet. You can eat conventionally raised meats and have excellent results. Also, processed meats are fine. When I'm looking at a processed meat, I always read the ingredients label though. I'm trying to avoid anything that has added sugar, corn syrup, vegetable seed oils, things like that. And I really want it to be 0 grams of carbs, but if there is a gram or two, I try to keep it to 2 grams or less. Finally, for the prep work, I wanted to touch on a few ways you can save some money. First of all, when you're shopping for meat, look for the meat markdowns. I am in the Chicagoland area. Jewel is our big grocery store around here. So what I like to do, I go in the morning and I check out the meat that has to be sold by that day. Typically, the meat manager is marking those down by 30 to 50%. So I pick up a lot of my meat that way, like a huge amount of my meat that way, saving a ton of money. Next, you need to become very well acquainted with the local grocery stores in your area. There are certain food items that I can get at this one international grocery store. They will also canoe cut the bone marrow, where I can't get that done at any other grocery store. And then I have some grocery stores that have certain other cuts of meat. meat. So just become very well acquainted with the stores in your area and their sales. Buying in bulk is a great way you can save money. Costco, Sam's Club, all of the big box stores have lots of great carnivore options. Finally, you can buy local. You can find a rancher or a farmer, buy half a cow, a whole cow, put it in your deep freezer. That's an excellent way to save money. Now that we've gone over some prep work, let's talk about actually getting started with carnivore. There's a couple of decisions you'll need to make. First, you need to decide if you're going to gradually reduce carbs or if you're going to go cold turkey into carnivore. Then you need to decide if you're going to track your food or not. So there's really three pathways to getting started on carnivore. The first one is going cold turkey with no food tracking. I would just say that you just eat intuitively. The next track is going cold turkey onto carnivore, but tracking what you're eating. And the third path is the gradual reduction of carbs. And I think if you're doing that, it's very wise to track your food so you can actually see how much you're reducing your carbs every week. So what works best for what people? When we're talking about reduction in carbs, there's some people that absolutely need to do this. Anybody that has had past issues with gout, kidney stones, if you're currently eating a really high oxalate diet, we'll talk about what that is here in a minute. If you have very low stomach acid, if you don't have a gallbladder, if you're susceptible to gallstones, if you've had bariatric surgery in the past, or if you have a really heavy work schedule or a very stressful job, or if you have a big event coming up, like a vacation in a couple of weeks, or like your child's wedding in a month, all of these people would benefit from reducing carbs gradually. And if you're doing that, you'll need to be using a food app of some kind. I use MyFitnessPal, there's Chronometer, there's Carb Manager, there's tons of free food tracking apps out there, and I really find that to be valuable. So for people that have had gout, kidney stones, or high oxalate consumption, the reason that you don't want to go cold turkey into carnivore is because if you do, you very likely may have a gout flare-up or a kidney stone, or for the high oxalate, you'll start oxalate dumping hard, and you're not going to feel really good. It's not the fault of carnivore. What it is your body has been so overwhelmed by plant toxins, by sugar, and all of these things that when you stop consuming that, you go down to zero carb, all of a sudden your body's like, oh my God, I can take a break. And it will start clearing all of that stuff out of your system. So for, like in the case of oxalate dumping, oxalates are just plant toxins that are little tiny crystals. They're very sharp. They play a big role in gout. So you might have a gout flare up because you stopped eating the carbs really quickly. So for you, just play it safe and slowly reduce the carbs over 8 to 12 weeks. An oxalate is a plant toxin, in essence. Plants don't want to be eaten, so they have defense mechanisms, and one of them is an oxalate. It's not in every fruit or vegetable, but it's in some, and in some that are commonly consumed, like sweet potatoes, kiwi, raspberries, chocolate, spinach. Spinach is a big one. So if you eat a really oxalate-heavy diet, you absolutely will want to gradually reduce your carbs. If you'd like to learn more about oxalates, you can pick up Sally Norton's book called Toxic Superfoods. I will link it in the description along with a free month of Audible so you can listen to it for free if you want to. Now, for everybody else, if you don't have any of those issues, you can do whatever you want. You could just go cold turkey without tracking, you could gradually reduce your carbs, or you could do cold turkey with tracking. And I do think tracking your food is valuable for a few reasons. First off, if you love data, it's fun to track your food. Second, if you're trying to hit specific macros, like you want to do 70% fat to 30% protein, the only way to know that you're hitting those macros is to track. And I like tracking because later on, if you run into issues, like say you do carnivore and in month 2, you start to have a weight loss stall or you start to have some kind of inflammatory stuff, and you're like, I'm wondering what's going on. You can look back at your food data and be like, oh, on the days that I ate this particular food, I didn't feel great. And you can find some patterns, So I do find value in tracking at least for the first few months on carnivore. Next up, I want you to define your why. Why are you doing carnivore in the first place? I think it's really important to have this in the front of your mind. So what I want you to do is write down your why on a Post-it note or a couple of different Post-it notes and put those Post-it notes somewhere you can see, your bathroom mirror or your closet door, wherever you can see them on a daily basis. I have several whys. So I have 3-year-old twin toddlers. I am 40 years old and I want to make sure I'm around to see them grow up. I'd love to see them get married. I want to make sure I can, keep up with them since I'm an old lady. And that's a big why for me. I really want to live until I'm at least 100, and I want to do some like crazy, wild, physical things. Like I don't know, climb mountains or like bike across a country. I don't know. I'm kind of a crazy person. So that's another big why for me. So just figure out your whys, why you're doing this in the first place. It could be to heal from some kind of metabolic issue that you have. It could be to watch your grandkids grow up. It could be that you just want to make it past your retirement day and not kick the bucket so you can go and do everything that you've been planning to do your entire life. So whatever your why is, write it down, post it. It's very important. The next decision you need to make is which version of carnivore you're going to start with. Like I said in the beginning, there are varying levels of strictness. Not everybody needs to start with the lion diet, which is just eating beef or other ruminants. I think most people can start with all meat, all seafood, eggs, and butter. Some people will do just fine with dairy, but I do advise cutting it for the first month and then reintroducing it so you can just make sure that you don't have an inflammatory reaction to it. I have an entire video about which version of carnivore you should start with, so I will link that at the end and also in the description of this video, but be sure to give that video a watch because it's really going to break it down for you and help you make the decision of where you should start. So now that you've prepped your kitchen, you've decided if you're going to go cold turkey or gradually reduce your carbs, you've defined your why, and you've decided which version of carnivore you're going to start with. Now you can finally get started on the carnivore diet. Here is the Cliff Notes version of what you're going to do on day one. For that first meal on day one, you're going to eat carnivore foods until you're comfortably stuffed. What does it feel like to be comfortably stuffed? Well, if you take another bite of food, you would probably start feeling sick, but you're right at that in-between point where you're like, I'm perfectly full. That's what you're going for. Then you're not going to eat again until you're truly hungry. So just repeat that process for the first month. You're really trying to learn what your true hunger cues are. Most people have no idea what their true hunger cues are. They just eat when they're bored or because there's a meal time, or they just snack mindlessly. You really want to learn what your true hunger cues are. We're also going to be retraining our bodies that first month to adjust to a new fuel source. I don't recommend a lot of snacking, but if it's going to help you get through the first month, I don't think snacking on carnivore foods is really that big of a deal. But I do want you to try to just eat really big meals at mealtime and really try to avoid snacking in between. You may run into some keto flu symptoms your first month. That is completely normal. Keto flu is just sugar or carbohydrate withdrawal. When you stop consuming carbs, your body is going to crave them and you're going to experience some withdrawal symptoms. Let's quickly go over what some of these symptoms can be. Fatigue, anxiety, racing heart, diarrhea or constipation, headache, nausea, food aversions can happen, aches and pains. I have a complete video on the keto flu that I will link in the description below, so be sure to check that out. But one of the best ways you can mitigate the worst of the keto flu symptoms is by taking some electrolytes. The electrolytes that I use are Elements. I used their raw unflavored packets in the beginning of carnivore, and they really help take the edge off the very worst of my keto flu symptoms. When you start carnivore, you're most likely going to be losing some water weight. And when you're losing water, you're going to be having some shifts in your electrolyte levels. A lot of the keto flu symptoms that pop up are simply electrolyte imbalances. I recommend doing 1 packet of the raw unflavored Element electrolytes in, 16 to 24 ounces of water first thing in the morning, right when you wake up, even if you're not experiencing any keto flu symptoms. Then you can do 1 or 2 more packets throughout the day if you need to take the edge off. Right now, Element is offering my viewers a free sample pack with any order, so you can head over to the link in the description. It's drinkelement.com/Jenny Mittich. That's DRINKLMNT.com/Jenny Mittich and get your free sample pack with any order today. I'm typically, like I said, raw unflavored packets are what I would recommend in the beginning of carnivore. I also love their sparkling waters. They're so good. I drink 1 or 2 of those per day. And both of those are free of maltodextrin and excellent choices on the carnivore diet. And that's basically your first month on carnivore, guys. Eat until you're comfortably stuffed at every meal, and then don't eat again until you're truly hungry. Giving your body time to get used to using fat as its main fuel source and addressing keto flu symptoms as they pop up. But of course, it's not always that simple. Some issues may pop up, so let's talk about the most commonly asked questions the first month on carnivore. First off, what if I'm not hungry? This is so common. When you're not consuming carbohydrates, your appetite levels are going to decline drastically. There's tons of people where their appetite tanks and they're just not hungry. So in that case, should they just wait until they're hungry to eat? I don't think so. I think if that's the case for you, you're going to know pretty quickly, and your appetite will adjust as you continue on carnivore for, a couple of months. That's really just the first month or two that you're going to run into issues with appetite. But I think in general, if your appetite tanks, you need to make sure you're getting enough nutrients. So I would say schedule 2 meal times per day and just make yourself eat at each of those meal times. Next up, how often should I eat? I think start with at least 2 meals per day, go up to 3. If you need to do some snacking in that first month, it's not the end of the world. But I think in my experience, at least with all the carnivores I know, they're typically eating 2 to 3 times per day. How much should I eat? Should I be hitting certain macros? Let's begin with macros first. So the most common macros that carnivores start with are 70% fat to 30% protein. And as you continue on carnivore, you may go up in fat, you may go up in protein, you'll figure it out. I think for me, I started around 70-30, and now I do higher fat carnivore. I really like 80% fat to 20% protein, but I also eat a lot of food, so it's still a really high amount of protein that I'm getting every day, but you can really adjust that. As far as how much should you eat, I think bare minimum 1,600 to 1,800 calories per day. Adults need to eat at least that much food in order to get all the nutrients that you need to be healthy. So that's a bare minimum. I understand that calories, it's a very complicated topic. It's very hard to accurately track how many calories are actually in a food, and your body uses calories in different ways. A calorie from a Snickers bar is totally different than a calorie from a ribeye steak. Whole real food sources are going to be used by your body much more efficiently than ultra-processed foods. That being said, I'm not a big fan of calories in general, but I do think that calories, they're something that most people understand and can aim for. So minimum 1,600 to 1,800. There's some people that eat 4,000 calories per day on carnivore or more. I think if you're coming from eating really low calorie, low fat for a long time, you really just need to refill your nutrient stores. You may even gain a little bit of weight in the beginning if you're underweight, but I'm just here to tell you that that will all even out. So just trust your body. If you're hungry, eat. What about seasonings and sauces? Can I have those on the carnivore diet? You're gonna get varying answers to this. A lot of people have strong opinions about this. I get tons of comments about this. I think most long-term carnivores use spices. I use garlic powder, onion powder, smoked paprika, all of the spices. I'll use salt. I use white pepper, not black pepper, because black pepper is very high oxalate. But in general, yeah, it doesn't give me any issues. As far as sauces go, I think anything that doesn't have any sugar or vegetable seed oils or things like that, so like mustard, vinegar. I use a buffalo sauce from Primal Kitchen that's made with avocado oil that's really good. But I'm not drowning my food in it. I'll have like a tablespoon or 2. Here's what I think you should do. Everyone can use salt, not a big deal. Find a high quality one. And then as far as seasonings and spices go, I think you could try cutting them for the first month and then reintroducing them and see if they give you any kind of bloating or joint pain or just, digestive issues. And if they don't, then include them. If you're going to be doing this for the long term, using a bit of spices, if it's not affecting you negatively, not a big deal. What can I drink on carnivore? Can I have coffee? So you're gonna get varying answers to this too. Water, sparkling water. I think coffee is fine. Technically it's a plant, and there are some people in this space that are like, you have to cut the coffee too. And maybe down the line, try that. I've tried cutting coffee. I did it for a week, didn't notice much of a difference. I probably should cut it for a month and then reintroduce it and see, but I think that's up to you. If not drinking coffee is what's stopping you from starting the carnivore diet, drink the coffee. It's so much more important to get the nutrition under control, and then you can make tweaks down the line. As far as other things you can drink, we said water, sparkling water, coffee is okay. Tea is pretty high oxalate, so I would avoid it, but a cup here and there, not a big deal. You really just want to avoid anything with added sugar and things like that. I know of plenty of carnivores that have success drinking diet soda. Sprite Zero, Coke Zero, Diet Coke, have no issue with it. Then I know of other people where it triggers carbohydrate cravings, sugar cravings. So you need to just figure out what works best for you. I would avoid any kind of energy drinks. Those things have so many added ingredients in it that you do not want to do that. But anything sugar-free in general should be fine. How long do I need to stay carnivore in order to see the true benefits? Well, honestly, as long as you possibly can, but minimum 30 days with, honestly, the true minimum about 90 days. You need to give your body time to get used to using fat as a fuel source and give your body time to recover. You didn't get to where you are today overnight. You're not going to see results overnight. In fact, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that new carnivores make, is just assuming that they're going to have crazy, amazing results right away. And you got to be patient. You got to be patient, especially if you're coming from a place where, you're middle age, you've been unhealthy for decades. It's gonna take some time to do some healing. Next up, an assortment of bowel movement related questions. Diarrhea. If you're running into diarrhea in the beginning, a lot of that is keto flu. Make sure that you're doing your electrolytes. That's not a joke. That's not, a fake thing. That's real. Electrolyte imbalances can cause diarrhea. In addition to that, just drink enough water. That's very helpful, especially if you're having diarrhea. You do not want to get dehydrated. Another thing that could be causing the, loose stools and things like that is consuming too much hot rendered fat. So melted butter, the fat that cooks off of the ground beef, in the pan. If you're just kind of like pouring that over your meat, that could be causing some issues. Your body needs time to build up the bile needed to emulsify all of that fat, so it may just be running right through you. So what you can do is just kind of step back a little bit on the fat, gradually increase it over time to give your body a bit more time to get adjusted to it. On the other hand, if you're experiencing constipation on carnivore, that could be a couple of things. Number one, if it's true constipation or if you have very hard stools, I would say increase the fat a little bit and make sure you're increasing your hydration and your electrolytes. Whereas for people with diarrhea, need to decrease the fat. For people with constipation, increasing it could help get things moving again. One unexpected benefit that I found with carnivore and that most people find is that any kind of gas or farting is completely gone. Like, I do not have gas when I am not consuming plant material. That was an unexpected benefit. Am I going to be getting enough vitamins and minerals eating only meat and animal sourced foods? Yes, you can get everything you need to thrive on a carnivore diet. Meat is the most nutrient dense food on planet Earth, so you want to eat as much of it as you possibly can. Let's finish up with those free resources that I mentioned at the beginning. First off, I have a free grocery list, carnivore grocery list. I also have a free 2-week meal plan. So if you would like both of those resources, head over to Instagram, follow me over there, and then send me a message saying you would like the free grocery list and meal plan, and I will get those right over to you. I've updated the meal plan for 2025. So if you already have the version that I had from 2024, message me again, I'll get you the new version. Next up, if you're looking for some support, accountability, and community, you can head over to my carnivore community on Circle. I'll put a link in the description so that you can check it out. We are over 700 people strong, and you can post about your successes, ask questions, you can message me directly. We do live streams, monthly challenges, and so much more. Also, if you'd like some carnivore apparel like this Carnivore Diet definition t-shirt here, you can head over to jennymittich.shop and use code RIBEYE15 to get 15% off your order. And finally, I'm going to put a link right here on the screen to my Beginner Carnivores playlist. This playlist has over 40 videos in it. I have curated it in a specific order. By the time you're done watching all of these videos, you are going to have every single question you have about carnivore answered, and you're going to be a carnivore expert. So be sure to check out this playlist. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below. I am here to help you. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.